That night, Elena did not walk out of a ballroom. She walked out of 8 years of humiliation, silence, and a marriage that had been killing her slowly. The rain fell over Chicago like the city itself was mourning with her, and somewhere between the ache of betrayal and the terror of being alone, a stranger noticed the pain no one else ever dared to see. But what Elena did not know was this: the man who offered her a seat, a voice, and a way out was powerful enough to destroy the husband who had broken her, and once his eyes settled on her, her life would never belong to fear again.
The sky began to weep the moment Elena Martinez fled the hotel ballroom, her heels striking the marble in a frantic tempo that echoed her own heart. She refused to look back. She couldn't. Not after the shattering cruelty of his words, now shards of glass in her memory. Crushed on the night of her husband's birthday, she slipped away, never suspecting he was a titan of the underworld. The ghost of champagne still stained her emerald dress, the one she'd spent 3 months of savings on, to be his perfect ornament. Perfect for his associates, perfect for his legacy, perfect for an audience of everyone but herself. As Elena emerged from the Grand Meridian Hotel in downtown Chicago, the November gale struck her like a slap. It was nothing, however, to the blow she'd suffered inside. Not a mark on her skin. Marcus was too clever for bruises anyone could see. His brand of pain was always far more surgical. She drifted aimlessly, her purse held tight against her ribs, her breathing shallow and torn. Towers of steel and glass rose around her, utterly indifferent to her sorrow, to the tears that rain washed away. Inside, 200 guests celebrated Marcus Whitfield's 40th birthday. The decor alone was worth more than her entire salary as a children's nurse. It was a fantasy of chandeliers, exotic flowers, and a jazz band no one heard. In the middle of it all stood Marcus, a king accepting fealty. Elena had played her part all evening, smiling until her jaw throbbed. She had laughed at hollow jokes and feigned a peace that did not exist. It was the role she had played for 8 years of marriage. A grand pretense? Tonight, though, the illusion broke. It began with a simple comment as Marcus held court with investors, boasting of his latest venture. One man remarked on his impressive empire, balanced with such a beautiful family. Marcus unleashed that laugh, the one she'd come to fear, cold and sharp. "Beautiful," he broadcast to the room. "Let's be realistic. Elena has her uses, but we need not embellish. I keep her because she's practical. She knows when to be silent and for the most part avoids embarrassing me." A tense discomfort settled over the investors. A throat was cleared, but no one spoke. No one ever did. Elena stood frozen, the wine glass in her hand trembling. A scream built inside her. She imagined throwing the champagne in his face, exposing the tyrant he was behind their locked doors. His suffocating control, his endless critiques, the way he had whittled her down to nothing. Instead, she performed her final act, a practiced smile, a quiet excuse to find the powder room. From there, she walked directly out the front doors. Now she was on Michigan Avenue, a street of happy memories from a life before it became a ritual of apology. The shops were now dark, their windows filled with mannequins locked in postures of manufactured joy. Elena stopped, realizing she had nowhere to run. Home was no refuge. It was Marcus's penthouse, a gilded prison overlooking a lake she was never permitted to truly enjoy. Home was where his fury would be waiting, demanding an answer for her unforgivable desertion. She had no one left. Marcus had seen to that, patiently severing every bond she held dear, convincing her they were the problem. Her parents were gone. Her sister had fled to Seattle 3 years ago, silenced after Marcus intercepted a call and told her Elena wanted no contact. The loneliness was a crushing weight. She walked on, heedless of the fine heels ruined on the wet concrete or the mascara tracing paths down her cheeks. Her only thought was distance. 3 blocks on, she veered onto a side street. She was just searching for a place to breathe when she saw it, a small cafe, its windows pouring warm light into the gloom. The sign above read Nocturna. Elena entered, a soft bell announcing her arrival to an intimate, sophisticated space. Dark wood and leather booths lined the room, with the low, smooth sound of jazz in the air. The cafe was nearly empty. A bartender, a quiet couple, and a lone man at the bar, his back turned to the door. Elena chose a small table by the window. She sought the farthest corner, craving anonymity. She wanted to cease to exist, if only for a moment in this warm, quiet haven. A young server with kind eyes approached, her name tag reading Sophie. "Rough night?" she asked softly. Elena glanced up. She was stunned that someone had even noticed her. "Is it that obvious?" A sympathetic smile. "The mascara's telling a story. Can I bring you something, my treat?" "Water's fine, thank you." "And perhaps some napkins." Sophie nodded and returned with water and a stack of napkins. She also brought a small plate of biscotti Elena hadn't requested, but was grateful for. "Take all the time you need," Sophie said. "We're open until 2. For the next hour, Elena sat, slowly gathering the shattered pieces of herself, watching the rain trace her own grief on the glass. She thought of the chain of choices that had led here. Marrying Marcus at 24. He had been so dashing, so successful, so much older. He had made her feel like the center of the universe. She had been blind to the warning signs back then. The jealousy he had called love. The control he had named protection. The cruelty he had passed off as simple honesty. She was ensnared before she ever knew. Her finances, his, her support system dismantled. Her own sense of worth, eroded by his years of methodical psychological warfare. But in the calm of that cafe, something fundamental shifted inside her. A feeling she had not known in years began to rise, not the dull, buried resentment she was used to. This was a clean, sharp blade of righteous anger, the kind of anger that sparks a revolution. She was 32 years old, with a nursing degree she hadn't used in 3 years. Convinced by Marcus she didn't need it, she had nothing. Nothing but the clothes she wore and a secret emergency fund she'd built over the last 6 months. $3,000 tucked away in an account he knew nothing about. It wasn't nearly enough, but it was a start. Lost in this thought, she didn't see the man from the bar approach until he spoke. "Excuse me." She looked up, startled. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair damp from the night. His eyes were the gray of a gathering storm, and his presence commanded the space around him without effort. His charcoal suit was exquisitely tailored, but he wore it like a second skin. He was a man who inhabited wealth, not one who displayed it. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said, his voice low and steady. "I couldn't help but notice you seemed distressed when you came in. I just wanted to be sure you were all right." Elena's defenses rose instantly. She'd had enough of men, but the tone of his voice gave her pause. It held no hint of a predator, no trace of a pickup line. It was simple concern. "I'm fine," she replied automatically, the lie tasting bitter. He raised an eyebrow, clearly hearing the untruth, but he didn't challenge her. "Very well," he said. "Should you need anything, I am at the bar. My name is Dominic." As he turned to go, Elena's instinct screamed to let him, but another impulse made her speak. "Wait." Dominic paused and faced her. "Why?" she asked, the question genuine. "Why would you care if some stranger is okay?" He considered her question for a long moment before he replied. "Because sometimes," he began slowly, "the only thing that separates a person from surviving a terrible night or not is one other person noticing that something is wrong." His words landed with an unexpected weight, reminding her of all the nights she'd felt invisible, screaming for help in a room of deaf ears. "Sit down," she said, her voice a near whisper. "Please." Dominic moved to the opposite chair with a fluid, deliberate grace. Closer now, she could see he was in his late 30s, with fine lines around his eyes that spoke of a man well acquainted with his own difficult nights. "My name is Elena," she ventured. "A pleasure to meet you, Elena." If only it were under better circumstances. A ghost of a laugh touched her lips. "That makes two of us." A quiet moment settled between them, a stillness Elena found surprisingly comfortable. There was no urgency to speak, no need for explanations. Dominic offered only a patient, stony silence. At last, Elena broke it. "I just left my husband's birthday party." "And abandoned him there?" "He was hardly by himself. He had 200 of his most intimate business colleagues for comfort." The acid in her own tone startled her. "Besides, I doubt he's even registered my absence. He's far too absorbed in being the focus of everyone's admiration." Dominic gave a slow, deliberate nod. "That sounds like a challenging union." "That's a mild way to put it." "How would you describe it?" Elena considered this. "A miscalculation," she stated at last. "An incredibly drawn-out, costly miscalculation." He offered no pity, no counsel, no suggestions to leave or to reconcile. He simply heard her, truly heard her, in a manner Marcus never could. "The most agonizing thing," Elena went on, the confession spilling forth now, "is that I was aware. Deep down, I sensed from the very start that something wasn't right, yet I pushed it aside. I convinced myself it was paranoia, that all couples face hurdles, that marriage would transform him." A harsh laugh escaped her. "Oh, he changed, certainly, for the worse." "People reveal their true selves," Dominic murmured. "The error isn't trusting what they show you initially. The error is dismissing it when they show you again." Elena studied him, truly seeing him for the first time. His gray eyes held a profound depth, haunted by shadows of his own troubled history. This was clearly not someone who had walked an easy path, his fine suit and refined demeanor notwithstanding. "You say that with the weight of experience," she observed. "We all carry a past," Dominic responded. "What matters is if you allow it to dictate what's to come." Their talk flowed on, weaving between subjects of gravity and levity. Elena gathered that Dominic ran multiple enterprises in Chicago, though the details remained obscure. He mentioned a younger sister overseas and a mother lost 5 years prior. Marriage had eluded him, despite a long-ago engagement. "What went wrong?" Elena inquired. "She concluded my world was far too complex for her," Dominic stated. And she was right. His words were laced with an old agony, a pain that had scarred but never completely mended. Elena knew it intimately, for she bore a similar wound herself. Time slipped by unnoticed. The downpour ceased, then resumed. Patrons came and went. Sophie refreshed their glasses and delivered food they hadn't requested, yet they both ate. As 1 o'clock in the morning arrived, Elena felt a sense of self she hadn't known for years. A profound freedom came with confiding in a stranger, one with no preconceived notions of her identity. Beside Dominic, honesty was possible. Anger was permitted. She could be fractured without fear of repercussions. "I ought to leave," she said at last, the idea filling her with deep unease. "To where?" Dominic's question was brief, but its true meaning was clear to them both. Elena faltered. "I'm not sure." "A hotel, probably. I've put some cash aside, sufficient for a couple of nights as I sort things out." And after that, that part is also a blank. A smile attempted to form on her lips but failed. I've existed inside another person's world for so long, I can't recall the shape of my own. Dominic fell silent, his gray gaze pensive. He then reached inside his coat, produced a card, and pushed it smoothly toward her. Should you require anything at all, he offered. Employment, shelter, legal counsel, anything. Use that number, anytime. Elena lifted the card. It was understated, tasteful, bearing only a name and a sequence of digits. No position, no affiliation, no context. Why are you offering this to me? She questioned. You have no idea who I am. I know what matters, Dominic countered. I know you're frightened, isolated, and worthy of more than the life you left. And I know that on occasion, the one barrier between a person and a new beginning is one single chance. Elena's gaze shifted from the card to the man offering it. A current was passing between them, something she couldn't quite grasp, a bond deeper than a random encounter in a rain-swept cafe. Thank you, she uttered. The words felt hollow, yet they were all she could offer. Dominic rose, fastening his coat. Save your thanks. Simply give me your word you'll call if the need arises. I will. His eyes met hers and held, and in that space, Elena sensed a shift. It wasn't love, not now, but it was the dawn of a connection, a mutual understanding maybe, or a sense of recognition. A feeling as if two souls, long anticipating the other, had finally met. With a single nod, Dominic turned and left the cafe, vanishing into the Chicago darkness. Elena remained alone, the card resting in her palm. She was unaware that Dominic Romano was among the city's most formidable figures. She had no idea his name was a hushed rumor in exclusive circles, or that his influence permeated the city's hidden depths, that his command was absolute where true justice dared not go. She was oblivious that in taking this card, in forging this link, she had just altered the course of her whole existence. Her only certainty was that after 8 long years, she was no longer isolated. For the moment, that was sufficient. Elena stepped from Nocturne into the biting November chill. The rain had ceased. The city sparkled beneath the lamps, washed and pure and brimming with potential. Drawing a deep breath, she began walking to the closest hotel. Across the street, hidden in the darkness, a black vehicle waited, its engine rumbling softly. From within, a man whose face bore scars tracked Elena's path until she vanished at the corner. He then raised his phone. She's on the move, he reported. Do I tail her? A beat of silence followed from the other end. Then came Dominic Romano's voice, composed and commanding. Negative. Let her be. Keep surveillance on the husband. I expect a complete file on Marcus Whitfield by sunrise. A faint smile touched the lips of the man in the vehicle. Boss, you certain this is wise? Involving yourself with a nobody? She is not a nobody, Dominic corrected him. Not now. The call ended abruptly, and the SUV glided from the curb, disappearing into Chicago's labyrinthine avenues. Elena remained completely unaware of the world she had just entered, but one truth was undeniable. Her existence was forever altered. Ensure you're subscribed to this broadcast. If not, you're foregoing tales just like this, narratives that linger long after their conclusion. Press subscribe now. You don't want to miss the coming chapter. The room was modest and forgettable, a standard double in a common hotel chain, just 3 blocks from the lake. Beige walls, brown carpet, and art of that bland, abstract sort found exclusively in such establishments. Yet for Elena, it was a haven. The first night passed with her eyes fixed on the ceiling, sleep eluding her as she braced for Marcus's arrival. The calls began around 2 in the morning, 37 in total, before she finally powered down her phone. His messages cycled from worry to rage to menace, the familiar progression of a man forfeiting command over what he believed he owned, his possession. "Where have you gone? This is no joke, Elena. Answer me, or there will be repercussions. You are nothing without me. Fine, I apologize. Just return home. So be it. You'll see the outcome of trying to abandon me." Elena scanned every text with a peculiar distance, as if they were meant for another woman. She finally perceived them for what they were, not declarations of affection or fury, but instruments of control, precisely designed to ensure her compliance. She replied to none of them. 2 days have passed. She now perches on the bed's edge, Dominic's card in hand, weighing her options. $400 of her funds were gone, spent on the room, meals, and a replacement phone to evade Marcus's tracking. Her reserves at this pace might stretch for another week, perhaps 2 with caution, and then nothing. She was without work, without professional contacts for the last 3 years, without a home, a vehicle, or any credit to her name. Marcus had methodically ensured every facet of her existence was dependent on him. Once, she had seen his desire to manage everything as a sign of affection. She now recognized it as the cage it always was. Elena's eyes fell upon the card once more. Dominic Romano. A name without meaning, but the man himself resonated with her. His gaze, his attention, his offer of aid with no strings attached. She lifted her new phone and placed the call. After 2 rings, a woman's voice answered. "Romano Enterprises, how can I help you?" Elena paused. I'm trying to reach Dominic. Dominic Romano, he provided this number. "And who may I say is calling?" Elena Martinez. "It's possible he won't recall. 1 moment, please." A click, followed by stillness. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs during the wait, a sudden fear seizing her that it was all an error, that she had misinterpreted his kindness, that he never imagined she would truly reach out. And then his voice, deep and recognizable, came on the line. "Elena, I was hoping you would call." A wave of relief washed over her, so potent she felt lightheaded. "You recall who I am?" "Of course I do." His tone carried warmth, but it was layered with something more, an edge of concern. "Are you okay? Are you secure?" "I'm at a hotel." That night, I walked away from Marcus, and I have not looked back. A good thing. "Yes." A silence stretched across the line. "Has anything passed your lips today?" The query cut through her haze. "What? Food? Sustenance? Have you taken any?" Elena's memory was a blur. "Half a sandwich yesterday, perhaps. Coffee this morning. I'm all right." That is not a reply. She could feel his displeasure through the receiver. "What is your location?" she answered, and the silence that followed was heavy with thought. "I am sending a car," Dominic stated. "It arrives in 20 minutes. I need you to step inside and allow it to take you to a safe harbor." "Safe? More secure than your current refuge? Marcus Whitfield has influence, Elena. A hotel in your name is the very first shadow he will check." A profound chill invaded Elena's very blood. The thought had never crossed her mind. She'd used her license to check in, her credit card for the deposit. It was a trail of breadcrumbs leading straight to her door. "How could you know of Marcus's reach?" she asked. The next pause was longer, deeper. "I am privy to many secrets about many people. It is the nature of my work. Enter the car, Elena. All will be made clear upon your arrival." The connection severed. Elena stared at the silent phone, her thoughts a whirlwind. Every instinct screamed that this was madness, that stepping into an unknown car, bound for an unknown place, was how stories of tragedy always began. But a deeper part of her, the part that felt his gaze in that cafe and felt truly seen, held faith in Dominic Romano. It was a trust that defied all logic, all self-preservation. She packed her meager possessions and descended to the lobby to await her fate. The car appeared in exactly 20 minutes, a sleek, black sedan with windows like polished obsidian. The driver was a man in his middle years, his smile courteous, his air professional. He opened her door without uttering a word. "To where are we headed?" she inquired, sliding onto the leather. "To the Romano residence, ma'am. The journey is roughly 40 minutes. The sedan pulled away, dissolving into the city's flow. Elena watched the metropolis drift by, familiar structures yielding to quiet suburbs, and then to the gilded sanctuary of the North Shore. The homes swelled in size and opulence, shielded by high walls and iron gates, their grounds sculpted by unseen, ever-present hands. At last the vehicle turned down a private lane, approaching a gate set between pillars of stone. The driver murmured into a speaker, and the gates retreated with a whisper. They ascended a curving drive, flanked by great oaks, their limbs skeletal against the November chill before the structure revealed itself. It wasn't a house, it was an estate. 3 levels of gray stone and sheer glass, a monument of modern elegance, with windows stretching to the heavens, overlooking a lawn that swept down to a private lake. The design was spare and clean, a world away from the garish mansions Marcus so admired. This place did not shout its wealth, it breathed it. The car came to a stop, and a man in a dark suit opened Elena's door. He was young, perhaps in his late 20s, with sharp angles to his face and eyes that absorbed everything. "Mrs. Martinez, my name is Vincent. Mr. Romano requested I bring you inside." Elena followed him through the entrance into a hall that seized her breath. The ceiling soared 2 stories, a massive abstract sculpture suspended from its center, like a flash of frozen lightning. The floors were polished concrete, the walls adorned with art she did not know but felt its immense value. "This way, if you please." Vincent guided her through a succession of rooms, each grander than the one before, a living area with a hearth large enough to stand inside, a library whose shelves reached for the distant ceiling, a dining hall with a table that could host 20. They finally came to glass doors that opened to a terrace poised above the lake. Dominic stood waiting, hands in his pockets at the railing, observing the gray water's restless surface. As Elena neared, he turned, and a subtle change crossed his features. Relief, maybe, or contentment, or an emotion far deeper, one she could not name. "You came," he said. "You were sent a car. I was uncertain you would enter it." Elena folded her arms, a sudden awareness of her displaced presence in this realm of quiet power. "I nearly didn't. But I recalled what you told me of Marcus and his influence, of his ability to find me." Dominic gave a slow nod. "He is already searching. He registered you as a missing person this morning." "What? He's telling them you suffered a mental collapse and vanished. He is concerned for your welfare." The sarcasm in Dominic's tone was a blade. "He is quite persuasive. The authorities are taking him at his word." Elena felt the very ground beneath her give way. This was Marcus's way, to twist the truth until she was the unstable one and he the worried spouse. It was a tactic he had perfected over the course of their marriage. "I am not unwell," she said. "I am not breaking down. I simply walked away. I am aware of that, but the police are not. and his lawyers certainly are not. If they locate you before you can offer your own account, he could have you institutionalized or simply make your existence impossible. The weight of his words settled upon her. Marcus wasn't just trying to retrieve her. He was trying to erase her, to shatter her credibility, to ensure that if she ever spoke against him, her voice would be dismissed as madness. "What should I do?" Elena whispered, hating the frailty in her own voice. Dominic turned to her, his gray eyes grave. "You permit my assistance. You will remain here, where you will be kept from harm. You will consult with my legal team to construct a case for your freedom that Marcus cannot manipulate. And you will believe me when I say that when this is concluded, Marcus Whitfield will never trouble you again." It was an overwhelming proposition, perhaps too much. Elena's mind was a tempest of questions, of doubts, of the insistent voice warning her against a man she barely knew, offering to turn his world upside down for her. "Why?" she had to ask. "Why are you willing to do this for me?" Dominic remained silent for a long moment, his intense gaze holding hers, making it impossible to turn away. "Because I have witnessed what men like Marcus inflict upon those they profess to love," he said at last. "Because I saw it annihilate someone precious to me. And I swore I would not idly stand by again if I possessed the means to intervene." He paused. "And because you entered that cafe looking as if life had worn you down to nothing, yet you still had a defiant spark in your eyes. That has meaning." Elena was at a loss for words. No one had ever addressed her with such force, with such absolute belief. The feeling was as frightening as it was liberating. "All right," she finally managed to say, "I will stay, for the time being." Dominic nodded, the barest hint of a smile on his lips. "Good. Vincent will escort you to your room. Find some peace, Elena. Tomorrow we begin the counterattack." He moved past her toward the house, leaving Elena alone on the terrace, gazing at the lake. The water was dark, placid, reflecting the bruised November sky. From afar, a bird's call came, solitary and mournful. She considered all that had transpired in the past 3 days. Escaping Marcus's party, encountering Dominic, the sterile hotel, the dark car, and now standing here, in the sanctuary of a near stranger who perceived her in a way her husband never had. It felt like the dawn of something frightening, something exquisite, something with the power to change her world. Elena drew a deep breath and followed Vincent inside. 3 weeks drifted by. Elena found a strange rhythm within Dominic's estate, though settled was hardly the word. There was nothing settled about her existence. Every morning she woke in the vast guest suite with its lake view and stark white bedding, and for a moment she had to recall where she was and the path that led her here. Then the cold truth would rush back in, and she would will herself from bed to meet the day. The home was managed by a quiet legion of staff whose functions Elena was only just beginning to grasp. There was Mrs. Chen, the housekeeper, an impressive woman in her 60s who commanded the household with calm authority. There was Carlos, the chef, a cheerful man from Mexico, who gently insisted on providing 3 meals a day, regardless of her appetite. There was Vincent, who acted as a sort of adjutant or protector for Dominic, perpetually present but never imposing. And then there was Dominic. He was often absent, handling business affairs he never elaborated on. On days he was present, they took their meals together, lost in long discussions that roamed from art to ethics to glimpses of their past. Elena learned of his youth in South Chicago, born to immigrants who sacrificed their health for their children's future. She learned of a father's death when he was 16, of a future abandoned to provide for his family, of an empire born of nothing but raw will and a ruthless spirit. The one thing he never explained, not directly, was the foundation of this empire. But Elena was not naive. She saw the men who materialized at strange hours, their voices low, their respect for Dominic tinged with something akin to fear. She caught fragments of their conversations, mentions of shipments, of territories, of issues that needed to be resolved. She would watch Vincent's hand, how it ghosted toward his hip, searching for a phantom weight that was no longer there. The truth of what Dominic was coiled in her gut, a suspicion hardening into certainty with every dawn. Yet strangely, the fear that should have been there never arrived. A sensible woman would be fleeing this gilded cage, this man, and the violent world that clung to him like a shadow. But Elena had survived a different kind of violence for 8 years, one that came dressed in fine suits to charity balls and corroded your soul from the inside. Next to that, Dominic's brand of darkness felt almost honorable. With him, at least, the beast didn't hide behind a smile. Marcus had spent their entire marriage pretending he wasn't a monster. The divorce moved at a glacial pace. Dominic's lawyers, a pack of sharks in bespoke tailoring, were systematically gutting Marcus's financial fortress. They had already bled out the secrets, the hidden accounts, the fraudulent filings, the business ventures that lived at the legal twilight. More critically, they were chronicling years of unseen abuse, building a cage of evidence that Marcus's charm couldn't unlock. Marcus, for his part, was not surrendering quietly. His missing person report vanished after Elena's statement, so he merely changed his weapons. He had frozen their accounts, strangling her resources. He contested every paper, every motion, every plea. He painted himself to the media as the devoted husband, abandoned without a word. The story was turning against Elena, and all she could do was endure. It was in this purgatory on a gray Tuesday in December that Dominic's house offered up a secret that changed everything. She had taken to exploring when the silence of the house became too loud. The estate was a world unto itself, always revealing a new corridor, an undiscovered room, another locked door. That day, she found herself in the West Wing, a section she had yet to breach. The corridor was hushed, lined with closed doors guarding rooms for guests, for storage, for purposes unknown. At the far end of the hall, a single door was cracked open. A sliver of light cut through the dimness, pulling her forward. Every instinct screamed for her to walk away, but curiosity had always been her most beautiful and dangerous flaw. She pushed the door and stepped across the threshold. It was a bedroom, more intimate than her own, but just as elegant. The walls were a whisper of pink, the furniture scaled for a child. Stuffed creatures guarded the bed. Books lined the shelves, and small drawings were pinned above a little desk. And in the heart of this sanctuary, a little girl sat cross-legged on the floor, a sketchbook in her lap. Her head lifted as Elena entered, her dark eyes wide with surprise. She was perhaps 7 or 8 years old, with dark curly hair in 2 puffs, and a face that was an uncanny echo of someone she knew. The eyes, the line of her jaw, the guarded watchfulness. She was Dominic's reflection. "Who are you?" the girl asked, her voice steady and clear. She has her father's stillness, Elena realized. His child. "I'm Elena," she answered, lowering herself to the girl's level. "I'm a guest here for a while. What's your name?" "Sophia." The child observed her with an unnerving intensity. "Are you my dad's girlfriend?" Elena felt a blush warm her face. "No, I am just a friend. Your father is helping me." Sophia gave a small, solemn nod, as if this explanation were perfectly logical. "Daddy helps a lot of people. It's his job." "Is it now?" "That's what he says." Sophia's focus returned to her drawing, dismissing Elena with an adult's finality. I'm drawing the lake. Do you want to see? Elena moved in closer to look at the page. It was exceptional for her age, imbued with a natural feel for composition. The lake bled across the paper in tones of gray and blue, with skeletal trees reaching for a sky heavy with clouds. That's so beautiful, Elena said, and she meant it. Thank you. Sophia added another stroke of blue. I like to draw when I'm sad. It makes the feeling better. Why are you sad? The question tumbled out before Elena could stop it, an immediate regret, but Sophia just shrugged as if sorrow were as natural as air. My mom went away, she said, her voice simple. A long time ago. Sometimes I miss her. Elena felt her own heart crack. She knew that ache, the permanent hollow, the phantom limb of loss. She'd felt it when her own mother passed, and again as Marcus pruned away everyone she had ever loved. I'm sorry, Elena whispered. I know how it feels to miss someone. Sophia looked up, her dark gaze suddenly piercing. Do you have a mom? Not anymore. She died a few years ago. That's sad. Sophia was quiet for a long second. But you got to have her for a time. Some people don't even get that much. The wisdom from such a small person was a blow that took Elena's breath. This child had seen too much, understood too much, shaped by a grief no child should ever have to carry. Sophia. Dominic's voice was a low rumble from the doorway. They both turned to see him standing there, his face unreadable as his eyes flickered between his daughter and the woman beside her. Daddy! Sophia was a flash of motion, running to him and throwing her arms around his legs. He lifted her effortlessly as if she weighed nothing at all. What are you doing up, Piccola? He murmured, a softness in his voice that was entirely new to Elena. Mrs. Chen said you were sleeping. I wasn't tired. Then Elena came. Sophia looked back at her with a bright smile. She's nice, Daddy. Can she stay? Dominic's gaze met Elena's over the top of his daughter's head. A universe of conflict warred in his eyes, a language she couldn't decipher. We will see, he said. Now, go find Mrs. Chen and ask for a snack. I need to speak with Elena alone. Sophia nodded and slid from his arms, giving Elena a little wave before she vanished into the hall. The silence she left behind was heavy, thick with things unsaid. You have a daughter, Elena stated softly. Very few people know she exists. Dominic drifted into the room, picking up one of Sophia's drawings. It is safer this way. For her? Always for her, he said, putting the drawing down and finally facing Elena. My world is not a kind place, Elena. You know this by now. There are men who would use her to hurt me. Keeping her a secret is the only armor I can give her. Elena absorbed his words, adding another facet to the impossible man that was Dominic Romano. Criminal, protector, father. Each piece of him contradicted the last. Her mother, Elena asked. She died when Sophia was 3, cancer. The word was a heavy stone dropped into a still pool. I've raised her alone since then, with help, yes, but in every way that truly matters alone. I'm sorry. Don't be, that was a lifetime ago. But his eyes told her that some lifetimes are never truly over. Some wounds just become a part of the landscape of a soul. She is remarkable, Elena said. Sophia, the way she sees the world, she's special. Something in Dominic's hard expression shifted, a crack in the facade. She is the best thing I have ever done, he said quietly. Everything else, the money, the power, this entire empire, it is all worthless next to her. And Elena believed him. In that moment, for the first time, she felt she truly understood him. He wasn't just a powerful man in a war with other powerful men. He was a father, desperately trying to build a safe world for his child. It was the same ferocious instinct she would have had if she'd ever been given the chance. "May I spend time with her?" Elena asked. "While I am here, I think we might be good for one another." Dominic considered this, his silence stretching. At last he gave a slow nod. "She could use a friend," he admitted. "Someone who isn't paid to be here. Someone who doesn't see her as a weakness or a prize. Just someone who sees a little girl. I can do that. I know you can." He met her gaze, and an unspoken acknowledgement passed between them, a bond forged deeper than words. "That is why I am saying yes." From that day on, a bond formed between Elena and Sophia. They drew, they read, they built forts from blankets in the living room that Mrs. Chen would pretend to scold them for, while secretly taking pictures. Sophia introduced Elena to her favorite fictional worlds, and Elena told Sophia stories of the hospital, of the new lives she'd welcomed, of the families she had watched begin. And slowly, so slowly you could barely feel it, the house began to change. The air felt lighter. Laughter started to echo in hallways that had been silent for far too long. Even Dominic, who carried a world of problems Elena couldn't fathom, seemed different. More relaxed, more present, more human. One evening, after reading a story and tucking Sophia into bed, the little girl's hand shot out and gripped hers tightly. "Yelena." "I'm here, my dear. Will you be staying? Like, for good?" The question strikes Elena's soul with the force of a physical blow. An answer escapes her. The divorce isn't final. Her own path forward is a complete unknown. The very concept of forever feels like a fantasy in her fractured world. But then she gazes into Sophia's pleading eyes, and the words she needs find her. "I will be here for as long as I possibly can," she vows. "And whatever comes to pass, I will always be your friend. Promise." Sophia nods, her worries eased. "Promise." She shuts her eyes, drifting into sleep moments later, with Elena watching over her in the dim glow of the nightlight. Elena observes the steady rhythm of her breathing, this little girl who had lost everything yet loved with such abandon, and feels a tectonic shift deep within her. What she has for Sophia isn't merely friendship. It's a profound, almost maternal connection that has laid dormant within her for so long, simply awaiting the right moment to awaken. She's so lost in the feeling she doesn't sense Dominic's presence until his voice cuts through the silence. "She adores you," he murmurs. Elena glances up to see him leaning against the doorframe, his gaze on them holding an intensity that makes her own heart race. "And I, her," she confesses. "I never anticipated it, but I do." Dominic crosses the room to her side, his eyes fixed on his sleeping child. The faint light softens the hard lines of his face, making him appear younger, his guard finely down. "She has not bonded with anyone this way since we lost her mother," he reveals. "I was afraid she never would again." "She only needed to be seen," Elena replies. "Truly seen. Not as a burden or a problem to be managed, but simply for herself." Dominic's gaze shifts to her, and the space between them vanishes. He is so near she can count the silver specks in his irises, so near she can feel the heat coming off his skin. "She needed someone like you," he says. "Someone like me?" she echoes. The very air thickens, suddenly charged with a current they'd both left unspoken. A frantic rhythm pounds in Elena's chest as she becomes hyper-aware of their proximity, of the razor-thin distance separating them. Now, before we go any further, I need to stop and ask you something. If you can feel your own pulse accelerating with this moment, if you are inside Elena's head right now, I want you to leave a comment with the phrase, "I believe in second chances." I need to know you are with me. I need to know this story is hitting you the same way it hit me. The silence between them is a fragile, high-voltage wire. Then Dominic pulls back, shattering the fragile connection. "You should get some sleep," he says, his voice huskier than before. "Tomorrow is a big day." He's gone without another glance, leaving Elena alone in the stillness of Sophia's room. Her heart refuses to calm, her thoughts reeling with what could be. A change was happening between them, one that could no longer be denied. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Elena wasn't terrified of the future. Christmas descends upon the Romano estate, an uninvited but welcome arrival. Elena never imagined she would remain for the holidays, but the divorce has stalled again, mired in property arguments that Marcus is fighting with exceptional cruelty. Her legal team insists victory is certain, that the proof is irrefutable, that it's all just a waiting game. But time is a slow torment when your world is suspended in uncertainty. And so, she finds herself celebrating in a home owned by a man she is beginning to love, with a child she adores, surrounded by a group of people who now feel like her own. Mrs. Chen directs the holiday, decorating with military precision, converting the mansion into a festive spectacle of shimmering lights, lush garlands, and a grand 12-foot pine in the central parlor. Carlos crafts a banquet fit for royalty, featuring his family's tamales next to a traditional turkey, blending his own heritage with Sophia's wishes. Even the perpetually stoic Vincent dons a Santa hat at Sophia's firm request. But Dominic transforms during this season. He steps away from his shadowy enterprises, dedicating his days to being at home, to his daughter, absorbed in games and films, and just being there in a capacity Elena had never witnessed. The constant strain he carries in his shoulders has vanished, supplanted by a gentler, almost cheerful demeanor. On Christmas morning, they convene in the parlor to exchange gifts. Sophia rips into her presence with pure, youthful delight, gasping at a professional art kit, a tower of new books, and an elegant dress Elena had helped select in secret. Yet it is her most cherished present, the one that brings joyful tears to her eyes. That is a locket holding a tiny photograph of her mother. "I came across it in storage," Dominic clarifies, his voice heavy with emotion. "I wanted you to have it." Sophia wraps her arms tightly around his neck and holds on for what seems like an eternity. Later, once the chaos of torn paper is gone, Dominic offers Elena a small, gift-wrapped box. "This is for you," he says. Elena just stares, caught off guard. A present was the last thing she expected. She was, after all, still a guest, a transient figure just passing through. "Go on, open it," Sophia insists, practically vibrating with glee. Within the box rests a delicate bracelet, a simple thin gold chain bearing a single butterfly charm. "It's for new chapters," Dominic explains softly, "and for the bravery required to fly." Elena feels a stinging in her eyes, a wave of emotion she fights to contain. She reflects on all she had endured, all that was taken, and all that she had discovered in this most unlikely of sanctuaries. And she knows that for the first time in ages, she feels hopeful. "Thank you," she breathes out. "It's beautiful." As she fastens the bracelet, its slight weight on her wrist feels like a solemn promise. The remainder of Christmas Day drifts by in a pleasant haze. It is filled with feasting, with joyous noise and melody, a festive spirit Elena thought she had lost forever. She watches Dominic with his daughter, sees him unwind, sees him truly smile, and she feels a new emotion taking root in her heart that she is not yet brave enough to name. That evening, long after Sophia was tucked into bed, Elena joins Dominic on the terrace. They sit wrapped in thick blankets, watching the quiet descent of snow over the dark lake. "Thank you," she says again, "for today, for this bracelet, for making me part of your family's Christmas, for all of it." Dominic keeps his gaze fixed ahead. His eyes trace the falling snow, the inky blackness of the water, the sprawling canvas of the night sky. "You are not just a part of it, Elena," he states. "You belong with us. Whether you see it yet or not, you are one of us now." "Dominic, I'm aware." He finally turns his head to meet her gaze, his face etched with a raw vulnerability she had never seen before. "I'm aware of the 100 ways this is illogical. I'm aware you are still bound to another man, battling for your own autonomy, trying to find yourself beyond Marcus Whitfield's control. And I am aware that I am the furthest thing from a safe bet for a woman seeking a simple life." "I'm not looking for a simple life," Elena counters, startling herself with the certainty in her own voice. "I tried simple. Simple was feigning happiness as my husband systematically broke me down. Simple was forcing a smile through the hurt and weeping in private so no one would ever know how shattered I was." She pauses, drawing a steadying breath. "What I'm looking for," she says, "is something real. I want something that is true, regardless of the complications. I want a person who sees me, all of me, the damaged pieces, the mending pieces, and all the space in between." She holds his stare, concealing nothing. "I want you." The 3 words hang suspended in the frigid air, achingly honest. Dominic remains perfectly still for a long moment. Then, with deliberate slowness, he reaches for her hand, his fingers lacing through hers. "I want you as well," he confesses. "I have from the first moment you stormed into that diner, drenched and defiant and utterly captivating. I convinced myself it was merely pity, a need to protect someone in trouble, but it was always more. It was always something more. So what are we doing? We're waiting for your freedom." He lifts her hand to his mouth, brushing a soft kiss over her knuckles. "I will not become a weapon he can use against you in your divorce. We proceed with patience. We do this correctly, and once you are finally untethered from him, once you can come to me with no shadows looming behind us, what happens then?" A genuine smile spreads across Dominic's face, transforming him entirely. "Then I will devote the rest of my days to showing you that you chose correctly." Elena settles against him, her head finding his shoulder, and for hours they sit, observing the snowfall and imagining a future that, at last, felt within reach. January arrives with a storm. It begins with a late-night call, Dominic's voice clipped and urgent as he speaks in rapid Italian. From the entrance to his study, Elena can only watch, unable to decipher his words, but seeing the threat in the rigid set of his shoulders. When the call ends, his face is ashen. "What is it?" she asks. "Marcus?" Dominic spits the name out like a poison. "He's been looking. He knows where you are, and he's paid people to come get you." A cold dread seizes Elena's core. What kind of people are they? The kind who do not accept no as an answer. Dominic strides to his desk and hits a panel Elena hadn't known existed. In an instant, Vincent materializes at the door, wide awake and on high alert. "We've got a problem," Dominic announces. "Assemble the team. I need a complete security overhaul, patrols doubled, and constant watch the perimeter 24/7. Nobody enters or leaves these grounds without my express permission." Vincent gave a slight nod and melted away. Elena fell into a chair, her thoughts a tangled mess. How could he have found me? We were meticulous. Marcus has connections. Dominic's voice was grim, far more than I ever anticipated. And his obsession with possessing you runs deeper than I ever imagined. What is our next move? Dominic came to his knees before her, his hands covering hers. "We retaliate," he vowed, "with every resource we possess, sanctioned or not. We will make Marcus Whitfield understand in no uncertain terms that you are not his to claim and you never will be again. And if it's not enough, then I'll end this my own way." The darkness that edged his words should have terrified Elena. Instead, she felt a profound sense of safety, a feeling of being shielded, as if for the first time someone would wage war for her. No questions asked. "I trust you," she whispered. "I know." He brushed a kiss against her forehead. "Try to get some rest. Tomorrow the battle begins." But sleep was a distant country. Elena lay awake in the dark, charting the sounds of a fortress preparing for a siege. The muted footsteps in the hall, the hushed exchange of words, the soft mechanical click of firearms being inspected. Her mind replayed images of Marcus, the man she married, and the monster he became. She mourned the years she'd spent in fear, the youth she sacrificed to a poisoned vow. She considered what might happen if he managed to drag her back, and a stark clarity bloomed in the darkness. She would choose death before returning to that cage. The thought did not bring terror. It brought steel to her spine. She rose from the bed, donned a robe, and went in search of Dominic. He stood in his study, a general among his men in dark suits, maps unfurled across his desk like battle plans, phones buzzing with an unceasing flow of intel. The moment he spotted her, he excused himself and came to her. "You should be asleep," he murmured. "I can't sleep, not when this is all my fault." "None of this is your fault. This is because of Marcus, because he is a possessive, dangerous man who cannot accept that he owns nothing of you." Dominic framed her face with his hands. "You are not responsible for his sickness, Elena. You never were." "I need to help," she insisted. "I can't just hide in my room and wait for the world to end. Give me something to do." Dominic regarded her for a heavy moment, then gave a slow nod. "All right," he conceded. "There is one thing." The plan they forged was a thing of beautiful, brutal simplicity. Marcus's mercenaries had been observing the state for days, searching for a weak point, a pattern to exploit. They were unaware that Dominic had been watching them in turn. "We will make them believe they've found an opening," Dominic laid out the next morning, his most trusted men gathered at the table. "We'll offer them a window that seems like a mistake, but is, in fact, a snare. When they strike, we strike back. And when it's done, we will have proof of their crimes that even Marcus's army of lawyers cannot bury." "And what about me?" Elena asked. "You will be the lure." The term hung in the air, cold and heavy. "Before you refuse," Dominic said quickly, "let me be clear. You will be completely protected. Vincent and 3 of my best will be your unseen guardians. The second Marquis's men act, we will descend on them. You will face no genuine threat. But for the trap to work, they have to think they have a real shot, Elena deduced. They have to fully commit before you can spring it. Exactly. Elena weighed the idea. The woman she once was, the one who lived in Marcus's shadow, would have crumbled at such a risk. But she was no longer that person. She had been a victim for too many years. It was time to become a weapon. I'll do it, she declared. The operation required 3 days of preparation. Elena kept to her routine, a masquerade of normalcy, spending time with Sophia, dining with the household, walking in the garden. To any observer, she was a woman at peace, oblivious to the coil of danger tightening around her. But beneath the calm facade, Dominic's people were a silent, unseen presence. Hidden cameras, listening devices, and men were poised at strategic locations across the grounds. It was a web of counter-surveillance that she found both masterful and deeply unnerving. On the third night, the snare was set. Elena was in the library, reading by the fire, when she heard the faint tinkle of breaking glass from deep within the house. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she willed herself to remain still, to continue reading, to be the picture of unawareness. She heard footsteps drawing near. The library door swung open. 2 men entered, clad in black, their features erased by ski masks. Their movements were fluid and economical, the clear sign of seasoned professionals. Mrs. Whitfield, one of them said, his voice flat. Your husband wants you to come home. Elena calmly set her book aside. My name is now Martinez, and I am not going anywhere. The men exchanged a brief look. One produced a syringe. He said, We can approach this simply or with difficulty. The choice is yours. Elena parted her lips to answer. But before a sound could escape, the room exploded into violent motion. Vincent emerged from a secret panel, a blur of deadly efficiency. 2 more of Dominic's agents shattered the windows from outside. The masked men had no time to process the ambush before they were subdued, driven to the floor, their weapons taken. The entire exchange lasted less than 30 seconds. Dominic appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of cold fury. Take them to the warehouse, he ordered. I want to know it all. Who paid them? Their entry point, their exact instructions. The men were dragged away, leaving only Elena and Dominic amid the broken glass and the charged silence. Are you unharmed? He asked, closing the distance between them. I'm fine. A tremor laced through Elena's voice as the brutal reality of the moment finally crested over her. That was intense. I know. I am sorry you were caught in this. Don't be. Her eyes found his, and from the wreckage of it all she summoned a smile. I told you I wanted to help. This is what help is. Dominic folded her into his arms, and Elena simply surrendered, letting the icy dread dissolve into the solid warmth of his hold. It is nearly finished, he murmured against her hair. One last effort, and Marcus will never reach you again. How can you be so certain? Because the men we captured will tell us everything once my people persuade them. And because an old friend in the prosecutor's office has been waiting years for an excuse to tear Marcus Whitfield's life apart. Dominic pulled back, his hands on her shoulders, his gray eyes blazing with resolve. By this time next week, your husband will be buried under charges of conspiracy and attempted kidnapping. His entire empire is going to fracture, and there's nothing he can do to prevent it. Elena wanted to believe him. She wanted it so desperately it was a physical ache. And what if he slips away, she asked. What if his lawyers spin some new lie? They won't. Dominic's voice was like iron. I will not let them. The following days became a blur of tactical legal strikes and careful planning. Dominic's legal team worked without sleep, building an unassailable case with the federal prosecutor, one that not even Marcus could escape. The men who attempted to abduct Elena gave full confessions, naming Marcus as the architect of the plot, detailing the payments, the orders, and the level of force they were cleared to use. The weight of the proof was crushing. On a gray Thursday morning, Marcus Whitfield was arrested, led away in handcuffs before the very colleagues he had spent a lifetime trying to intimidate. The images were broadcast on every news channel. Elena watched it unfold from the safety of Dominic's study and felt something she had long thought was lost to her forever. Freedom. The divorce was made final 2 weeks later. Elena emerged from the courthouse as her own woman, a bracelet catching the winter light, her future a wide, open expanse. Dominic was waiting for her on the steps. How do you feel? He asked her. Elena gave the question its due weight. How did she feel? Relieved, exhausted, grateful, hopeful? Like I've finally come back to myself, she said, as if the person I was always meant to be was just waiting for a chance to finally live. Dominic gave her that smile, the rare one that could shift the very atmosphere. I'm glad, he said, because there is something I have to ask you. What is that? He took her hand, his thumb tracing slow circles on her skin. Come home with me, he said. Not as someone needing my protection. Come home with me as my partner, as my equal, as the woman that I love. Elena's breath caught in her throat. You love me. I have loved you since that first day at the cafe, Dominic admitted. I was just waiting for the storm to pass so I could tell you. This is the right time. This is the only time that matters. Elena gazed at this man, so complex, so dangerous, so beautiful, who had given her sanctuary and demanded nothing. She thought of the life that could be theirs, filled with its own challenges and its own light, its darkness and its joy. And she already knew her answer. Yes, she breathed. Yes, I will come home with you. Dominic gathered her into his arms, kissing her with a profound depth. And on her lips, Elena tasted liberty, possibility, and the dawn of a new life. 6 months on, spring had reawakened the Romano estate, transforming it into a sanctuary of renewal. The trees, once stark and bare upon her arrival, were now cloaked in vibrant green leaves that danced on a warm wind. The lake's surface glittered under a brilliant blue sky, a field of scattered diamonds, and the air was filled with the perfume of fresh blossoms, new-cut grass, and the unmistakable scent of hope. Elena stood on the terrace, her gaze lost in a vista that had woven itself into her soul. She wore an unadorned white dress, her hair falling freely, and on her wrist, Dominic's butterfly bracelet. At her side, Sophia was a current of pure excitement. Are you nervous? The little girl whispered. A faint smile graced Elena's lips. A little. Are you? No chance. I've been waiting for this my whole life. Sophia bounced on the balls of her feet. I can't believe you're actually going to be my mom. The word still sent a tremor through Elena's heart. Mom? A name she thought was buried with the dreams she'd surrendered during her years with Marcus. But Sophia had filled a void she hadn't known was there, and the adoption papers signed last month had sealed it in ink. She was a mother, and in moments she would be a wife. The ceremony was a quiet, intimate affair in the garden, attended only by those who held pieces of their hearts. Mrs. Chen dabbed at happy tears from the front row. Carlos and Vincent stood as Dominic's steadfast groomsmen. Even some of his business associates were present, men whose affairs Elena never questioned. Their respect for their leader shone in their presence at his joy. When the music began, Elena walked the aisle alone, for she had no one to give her away. She had been given away too many times before. This, however, was a choice, made freely, with a clear understanding of the woman she was becoming and the man she was joining. Dominic's gray eyes watched her approach, shining with an intensity that made the rest of the world blur. His dark suit fit him like a second skin, projecting all his power, yet she saw beyond it to the vulnerability, the gratitude, the love in his gaze. When she met him at the altar, he took her hands, and the minister's voice rose to begin. Their vows were their own creation, private words charting their unique journey. "I promise to see you," Elena began, "not the image you show the world, but the man you are. The father, the protector, the one who stepped into a cafe on a stormy night and altered my destiny." "I promise to be your shield," Dominic replied. "Not by commanding you, but by standing with you. I promise to love you in light and in shadow, in peace and in struggle, for as long as I have breath." They exchanged rings. A kiss sealed their pact, and as the minister pronounced them man and wife, a cheer rose from the small gathering, echoing across the still water and into the open sky. The reception was a joyous, beautiful chaos of food, melody, and dance. Elena was spun from one partner to another, laughing at remarks she partly grasped, accepting congratulations from near strangers. But through the whirlwind, her gaze continually sought Dominic, and his always found hers. As the night deepened and guests began to depart, Elena slipped away to breathe in the cool air. She walked to the lake's edge, the water lapping at her bare feet as she watched the moon ascend. She heard footsteps but didn't need to turn to know. "Escaping already?" Dominic murmured, his arms wrapping around her from behind. "Never." Elena sank back into his embrace. "Just taking a moment to remember." "Remember what?" "The woman I was when I first came here. Broken, afraid, completely alone." She turned in his arms to look up at his face. "And the woman I am now." "And who are you now?" A true smile lit Elena's face, the answer finally coming without effort. "I'm home," she said. "I'm finally home." Dominic kissed her brow, her cheeks, and then her lips. "Welcome home, Mrs. Romano." They stood together by the lake, two souls who had found one another against all odds, building something beautiful from the ruins of their pasts. The water mirrored the moon, the stars, and the house lights, creating a reflection of infinite futures. Inside the house, Sophia pressed her face against the window, watching her parents with a smile devoid of any shadows. In the distance, the Chicago skyline glittered, a tapestry of darkness and light, of endings and new beginnings. Elena reflected on the winding path that had led her to this very moment, the years of suffering, the night she fled, the stranger in the cafe who became her fate. She considered the myriad ways her story might have ended, the paths left untrodden, and she felt a profound sense of gratitude for the courage to run, for the chance to mend, for the family she found in the last place she ever expected. Some stories end in tragedy, but this one, defying fate, found something far better. This one ended in love. If you have journeyed this far with us, this story was meant for you. Leave a comment that says, "I've watched this far," so I can know the kindred spirits listening tonight. And if this tale touched you as it did me, Please press the like button and share it with someone who needs to believe that second chances are not just a fairy tale. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your faith in these stories and for reminding me why I feel compelled to tell them. Be certain you are subscribed to this channel because more stories like this await you. Stories of strength, of love, of people who refused to break when the world gave them every reason to shatter. Press that subscribe button, activate the notification bell, and I will meet you in the next telling. Until then, remember, no matter how profound the darkness, dawn is always on its way. This is more than a story, it is a promise, and we honor our promises here. And we... Bell?